YouTube? Hey, I'm Derek, and welcome to Stop Skeletons and Fighting. So there I was at the thrift store, as I often am, and I noticed something with the PlayStation 2 logo that I did not recognize. It was a DVD remote. Now, the PS2 first came out in 2000 for a lot of people. This was their first DVD player ever, so of course they made a remote for it. I'd forgotten it even existed because, well, you can use a regular PS2 controller for DVD menus. So I was about to put it back until something caught my eye. A complete set of controller buttons at the bottom. Triangle, circle, square, X, start, select, even R3 and L3. What? Why? Does this thing work with games then? Why? And that's it. That's the intro. That's sometimes the universe gives you a sign, and I have a curiosity for dumb video game crap that I just cannot turn off. I tested over 80 PS2 games with this thing. This is punching weight. You know the drill. Let's get going. Hold on. And video start. Alright, so let's start with a closer look. Here it is, the PS2 DVD remote. Now, first of all, when was the last time you had a DVD remote with this many buttons? There are a whopping 49 buttons in total here. Even with the added streaming shortcuts, modern DVD remotes don't have this many buttons, or at least my parents' controllers don't. They're the only people I know that don't just watch DVDs on game consoles. But also look at this, program, repeat, shuffle. Yeah, shuffle. I couldn't wait to make Christopher Nolan more incoherent, but this is where I found out that my PS2, whoever owned it before me, password protected it. I think this is also built for CDs for music. All of this, by the way, super unnecessary. I can appreciate that the remote was like trying to do a lot, but it's still nothing you can't do without a controller, and PS2s came with controllers. Yeah. Now the one bonus is this baby is wireless. I'm using a PS2 Slim model, which has an IO receiver built into the unit. However, that is just for the DVD and CD features. You're gonna need that receiver to use this baby with games. Get good. And that's all I really care about. Being able to navigate my Matrix DVD or shuffle my Linkin Park CD without fear of someone tripping on the controller cord was, I'm sure, a serious concern in 2000. That's maybe why this thing was made, but it's also a fully functioning controller. Like, every button on the DualShock is here, except the analog sticks, the analog button between them, and of course no rumble. The reason isn't so much important. What's important is that it's here. So let's get to it. The first thing you must do is see if it works with Doom. If you don't, I think you legally have to buy John Romero a pizza. There is no PS2 Doom, but there is backwards compatibility with the PS1 version. And right away, it works! But this is a remote, not a normal controller. The buttons are a soft rubber and super squishy, extremely different texture from a PS2 controller. It's hard to know when you've correctly pushed a button, and also, there's a huge delay, like about a full second, maybe more. I hope you're sitting down. This is not a great way to play video games, but when has that ever stopped me? It was time to turn on to actual PS2 games, and the first thing you must check after Doom is, of course, Resident Evil 4. Again, I think this is international law. But I had the wrong memory card in the system. I couldn't even get off of the memory card check at the beginning. Not a good sign. Just to be sure, I plugged in a controller, got into the game, swapped the remote receiver, and still nothing. Sorry, Ashley, Leon refuses to cooperate.
Don't just stand there! Help me!
Next, Silent Hill 2. Similar problem, except it tells me to plug in a DualShock 2 before I even get to the title screen. I'm starting to get worried, but then success! Tekken 5. The game starts up normally, I use the arrow keys to navigate the menus, and bam! I am in a match! Playing about as well as you'd expect, but I am playing Tekken with a DVD remote, and there's not a single person out there that can stop me. But what does Tekken have that Resident Evil 4 and Silent Hill 2 don't? And this is where I actually learned something about PS2 games. If you look on the back of the PS2 case, somewhere near the bottom, usually just above all the legal stuff, there are little boxes of features. How many players, how much memory card space, if it has online, and this is where I spotted the difference. Digital control. Silent Hill 2 and Resident Evil 4 only have analog control. Tekken 5 had both. You probably never paid attention to this because you weren't trying to play on a DVD remote, but this basically means if it uses the D-pad, the analog sticks, or both. And yes, the D-pad is digital, apparently. The hell do you call this then? Just to be sure, I tested Code Veronica, Mega Man Anniversary Collection, and Wild Arms 3. None had digital control on the back, and none worked with the remote. Even the Devil May Cry demo wouldn't accept the remote, and I know a lot of you were curious about this one. Armed with this knowledge, I did the only sane thing. I went through my entire PS2 collection and pulled out every single game with digital control on the back and tested it. Life is short, I'm gonna have fun. And you know what I found? A lot of games work with this thing. Like, I tested over 80 games, and of those games, only 13 flat out didn't work, giving me the DualShock 2 demand or not registering any button presses at the menu. So, a huge majority of the games I tested, it worked. And you know what I had the best of luck with? Fighting games, actually. Marvel, King of Fighters, Soul Calibur. And this is a good time to say that this remote not only has huge delays, but also it does not take more than one input at a time, meaning you cannot push 2 buttons at once. So great for fighting games. All jumps are neutral jumps. Crouching attacks are impossible. I tried desperately to get Ryu to Fireball or Chun-Li to Lightning Kick. Actually, I was able to get Chun-Li to Lightning Kick for a brief shining moment in Capcom Fighting Evolution, but only after I changed the game speed. But then doing combos, dude, forget it. Actually, I was able to squeeze out a few combos in Soul Calibur, which I think officially makes Soul Calibur the greatest fighting game series of all time now. Sorry, international law. I'll see you in court. Oh, and that was Arcade Street Fighter 2. I'm playing that on the Capcom Arcade Classics compilations. They both work with the remote, which means you have a chance to play dozens of arcade classics with a DVD remote. I have never died so early into Final Fight. Again, that delay means movement and combos are like almost impossible. Good luck cleaning up Metro City with this thing. But this thing was basically built for Quiz and Dragons. I tried all my other retro compilations, Midway, Intellivision, Taito, SNK, all of them worked. And if all the system's other compilations work as well, this opens the door for a few hundred other games to try. You thought Metal Slug was hard before, try it when you can't shoot up. Speaking of action games, Contra Shattered Soldier, one of the most brilliant and demanding action games of all time, is DVD remote ready, baby! Action games was a tough genre to test for though, and this is where I started noticing that the digital control on the back didn't necessarily mean it was compatible. Games like Kill Switch, Time Splitters, and Burnout 3 did not work at all despite being digital control compatible. Could you imagine Kill Switch? And take Castlevania for example, these work 100% with the remote, but the D-pad is for item management. Without analog sticks, you cannot move, so technically compatible, but not really. Freedom Fighters had the weirdest reaction. It does not work with the remote, but with the receiver dongle plugged in, the intro plays all stuttery and slow. But the second I pulled it out, back to normal. Plugged it back in, stuttery again. How is that even possible? What is this little thing even doing? And then Tony Hawk 3 was fine except for the camera. For some reason, the right analog stick is stuck pushed up, so it's basically unplayable. Also, Onimusha 2 does something really weird. It works with the remote, but the buttons are all out of whack. Right is the start button, you can't really move, and unplugging and plugging in the receiver seems to be X? Somebody smarter than me can probably explain why this is happening. Oh, and speaking of Onimusha, I mentioned earlier that Resident Evil 4 and Code Veronica and the DMC demo were all no-goes with the remote. But the first Onimusha is compatible, and so is the Smash Bros. Clone Blade Warriors. So that's right, you can play Smash Bros. With an N64 mouse and a Smash Bros. Clone with a DVD remote, because video games were worth it. Also, Silent Hill 2 wouldn't even boot up, but not Silent Hill 3. Though because you cannot push 2 buttons at once, it is impossible to attack or run, but I guess pacifism runs just got more interesting. What could possibly be dumber than Silent Hill 3 with a DVD remote? How about light gun games? I tried all of my Namco shooters and wow, yes, all of them work. For Time Crisis, you'll need to switch over to press instead of hold for cover, but man, go nuts. Crisis Zone was maybe the best one to play on a DVD remote? I mean, they're all good, I guess. And what could be dumber than light gun shooters with a remote? Kojima Games. Every one I tried, MGS2, MGS3, Zone of the Enders, the skateboarding minigame, the MSX ports of the original, all on the DVD remote. I dare you to do it, Kojima fans. You won't be able to use any inventory since you can't push more than one button at once, but I believe in you. I believe you will find a way. It's what Kojima would want, right? You probably fought to make sure that DVD remote tech was there. Alright, it's all fun and games, let's get real. With the limited movement and the huge input lag, this is honestly best used for RPGs, and yep, it works pretty uniformly there too. Of course, I had to test the digital controls with Digital Devil Saga, and yep, it worked! So did both Personas 3 and Arcs the Lad, or at least for advancing text and walking around. I don't have the patience to start up a JRPG on a good day, and boy, these JRPGs take a long time to start. But then, I had an epiphany. 3D JRPGs really do benefit from an analog stick. The movement is a bit of a pain on this. This would be so much better on PS1 RPGs, and so just for the hell of it, I plugged the receiver into a PS1, and what the hell? It worked there too! What is this thing? Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil 1. You could play Tekken's 1, 2, and 3 on PS1, or Tekken's 1, 2, and 3 as specials in Tekken 5. The world is yours! What the hell, man?
What the hell, man? What is this thing?
I spent hours testing PS2 games and a few demos, but when I figured out that it also worked on a PS1, I tested a couple before I had to throw in the towel. There are only so many hours in a day, and since the majority of PS1 library doesn't have analog support anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that most of the games work there. What I have learned is that this thing is shockingly compatible with a lot of games. What I have not learned is why. Why are these buttons here? What purpose did they serve? Hey, update. I got a haircut. Don't worry about it. So, some Patreon supporters actually tipped me off to the reason. I double-checked the manual, and yes, here it is. This thing actually shipped with an install disc because certain PS2s couldn't natively use the top half of the remote, so the controller buttons were like a backup plan. But who had a PS2 and just didn't have a controller? Like, who had a system and a remote but not a controller? I'm still confused, but I guess that's the reason. I don't know. And there are different models of this thing. Here's one with an open and reset buttons at the top. I found a manual for another one, and all three of these have different model numbers. Do they operate differently? I don't know. And it's not even the weirdest thing. There is a PS3 remote and an Xbox 360 remote that has shoulder buttons. Oh, and apparently the PS3 remote does not have the lag like a PS2 remote, so if you have a fat, backwards compatible PS3, that opens the library up to PS1, 2, and 3 games, the whole libraries. This is a much deeper rabbit hole than I ever realized. It would appear, though, this is also a short-lived trend. The PS4 remote only had a couple of controller buttons, and the PS5 remote has no controller buttons, looking more like your minimalist DVD remotes nowadays. But I've got to stop there. I put it out to the world. Get yourself a remote and start testing these weird things. Thank you so much for watching. I am Uncle Derek. This is Stop Skeletons Fighting. This was Patreon supported show for almost 6 years now. If you want to watch videos early, you want to chat with us during the recording of our podcast, you can do that. Go ahead and support us. If you cannot, though, hey, tell a friend. When someone asks what's like the weirdest, greatest, dumbest YouTube channel, tell them about Uncle Derek. Tell them about Producer Grace. And tell them that we'll be back again real soon. 2021 is still going to be our year, damn it. We got stuff planned. But thank you so much for watching. And that's it for now. See you again real soon. Stop. Is it still going? Did I stop it?
Shuffle.
Oh, shuffle. All right. His games are basically movies already, right? Just like... Hold on. Subtitle. Angle. I pushed the angle button. Is that good now?